My guest today not only had a successful Christian music career with 16 number one songs as a solo artist and a songwriter, but he's also figured out how to do what every other CCM artist has tried to do, have that second career away from the traditional Nashville label and touring life. And let me tell you, he's figured it out. He's a guy For Him toured with a couple of times in the 90s, and he now lives with his wife, Katie, in the Pacific Northwest. Oh, and he has one of the hardest names to spell in the history of Christian music. Please welcome my friend, Scott Krippayne. Scotty, how you doing?
I'm good. I enjoyed listening to that. I need
I
to have
nailed it.
somebody read that to me every
Nailed it.
morning, and I'll feel good about my day.
I want to
I don't
know.
know if
I
it's
want to
all
know.
true, but it sounded nice.
I don't know. We'll go through that here in a minute because I got it from your website and Wikipedia. I don't know which one is more reliable, but
Website probably. I did just change my birthday, or birth year on Wikipedia,
oh,
because it
make
had
yourself
me
older or
listed
younger?
older. And I changed it once years ago, and somebody changed it back to the incorrect date. So I was like, okay, I'll be 1 year younger, whatever.
I
But
don't understand Wikipedia because I'm like, who knows? Like, who's doing this? I don't understand. I don't. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, I read all your stuff on Wikipedia." I'm like, I don't have a Wikipedia page. They're like, "Yeah, you
yeah,
do."
you do.
I'm like, "Oh man, it's a little freaky." How many ways are there to spell your name?
There are two ways that I use, but other people have used lots of ways. So there's the legal way that we never change. It's Krippahne. So that I never changed legally, but in the 90s, and once I signed to a record company, they're like, that might be a problem. Can we talk about that? So we did do a spelling change, Krippayne. And I was like, I don't care what we spell it to, just whatever that is, let's let people be able to pronounce it, because that's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we want to do. And I remember what was like one of the first days after that, I went someplace with that. They're like, Mr. Krippayne. I was like, perfect. We've nailed it. This is great. We've already failed, but whatever.
That is part of it. I'm working with some new artists right now in Nashville that are about to get signed, and they're all, they're trying to figure out what their name is going to be when they hit the stage. I'm like, it never crossed my mind to change my
Yeah.
name. I look back now and go, I would have liked a different name, but whatever. We made it.
Well, it never crossed my mind. I mean, I knew it was going to be an issue, but I wasn't really
Mhm.
like, oh, wow, I want to change this. But I was also very much like, I came in young, codependent, and I was like, you guys know what you're doing. If you say it, I'll be agreeable to that. Let's do it.
The
And
biggest mistake we make as young artists going, oh yeah, hey, that sounds great. Yeah, we trust you. Go ahead. Do whatever you want to do.
totally, your
Yeah.
vision sounds great.
Oh my
And
gosh. I remember when we first hired our manager, Mike Atkins. Were you one of Mike's clients?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I remember Mike taking a look at our record deal, and he goes, "Oh no." We're like, "What?" He goes, I can't work with this. You guys signed this on your own. No, I got nothing to work with." But man, speaking of names, I remember when we were out on tour with Clay Cross, and we went to Memphis for a show, which is his hometown, and this dude came up and went, "Wally," and he
Yeah.
was like, I saw him go. "Ugh." We're like, "Wait a minute, Wally, what's going on here?" He goes, yeah, my real name's Walter." We're like, wait, we gotta like that was kind of my first time, with someone's like, you changed your name. Well, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wally Crosno probably isn't as good of a stage name as Clay Cross. So yeah, I totally get
I
that.
mean, I like Wally Crosno. and
I do
and funny
too.
you funny you should bring that up, because when I first moved to Nashville, um, one of my part-time jobs was delivering airline tickets for a travel agency, back when there were
Wow.
travel agencies
Yeah.
and paper tickets.
Yep.
And I would deliver to some of the music companies. And I had a ticket for Wally Crosno, or Walter Crosno, that I delivered to his management company. And I was like, and piece two and two together. I was like, oh, okay. And learned the same thing. It was like, oh, it makes sense where you get Clay Cross out of that. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's brilliant marketing. I mean, that's somebody had a great idea. I'm going to have him on the podcast as well here pretty soon, and
I
that's one of
love
the
it.
things I really want to dive into. So tell me what all you did before you. I don't know if you like this term, hit it with your first with your first album or first single? Like, what were when you first moved to Nashville, where'd you move from? And, tell me what life was like before you, like got out on tour and made this a living.
Sure. I mean, I was, I knew I wanted to do music since high school. Got into college, and I met Christ right before my senior year of high school. And so my music began to shift in what I was writing about and singing about at that point in time. Because my
Which was
faith
what?
was,
What did it shift from?
well, I was doing just pop music. I mean, I loved melodies. I listened to Journey and Billy Joel and Hall and Oates and all of that. So, but I wasn't writing songs about my faith. I was just writing songs about the girl who didn't like me,
Were there a
or
lot
the
of
girl
those?
I liked, or whatever, you know.
Which are there more
And
of?
yeah, and yeah, I'm not gonna dive into that. Plenty of girls who didn't like me. Then I was a stalker. I just wrote songs for him, which now might be cool, but I don't need to do it now. But it was creepy then, but yeah, so I was doing that. But as my faith began to, it all of a sudden it was like, oh wow, I know Jesus. He knows me. He loves me. So I started, it wasn't like, wow, I'm only writing what we'd call CCM or Christian songs, but my faith was finding its way into the songs I was writing. Fast forward a little bit into a couple years into college, got involved with the worship group at a college fellowship thing, was playing piano and singing for them. Had some opportunities to sing at a camp or to go play a few of my original songs at different churches. And so it kind of just blossomed into this thing, that by the time I was done with college, I was like, I just want to keep doing this. I don't know what it looks like. There was no roadmap for how do you make a living writing songs, singing songs, but
Right.
had a really supportive church up in Seattle, outside of the University of Washington. And they kind of gave me an artist in residence where they're like, hey, hang out with college students 10 hours a week. We'll get you a host family and you can build this ministry thing without as much of a financial burden. And so I was able to do that for about a year, and had a friend who had a friend of his dad's worked at the William Morris agency in Nashville.
Yeah.
And so he sent my little independent cassette down to this guy, and that guy heard it and called me up and was like, hey, I hear some stuff on here. I hear some potential. What do you want to do? And he encouraged me, like, if I ever made it down to Nashville, he'd be willing to set me up with some meetings. And so to have that was someone in the industry, I guess, is, it sounds like such a cliche term, but someone who basically gave me the confidence to go, oh, somebody hears something. He wasn't like, wow, you're great, but he's like, I hear potential. And that got me to take a trip to Nashville, which led to a move to Nashville, and, having meetings and thinking it was all going to happen quick, and nothing ever really happens fast. But but I did have my first trip to Nashville. I went with my older brother, which was fantastic because he was able to offer some perspective. I mean, I met with 7 different like A&Rs and publishers, and thinking that somebody is gonna hear one of my songs and just sign me to this deal and my life is going to change, and whatever the dreams of a 22-year-old might be. And no one did. But at the end of the trip, my brother was like, yeah, I know what you wanted to happen didn't happen the way you thought, but he said, but you have 6 people now, 6 out of 7 people you met with all said were willing to listen to more songs and to send them more things. So those are 6 new relationships you didn't have a week ago. And I was like, yeah, that's good.
That's so good for young artists to hear too, is that it is a process. Like if you really want to do this for a living, you just got to keep writing, you got to keep recording, you got to keep doing demos, you got to keep meeting people, you got to get out there and sing. Like that's it. You got to get out there and sing and get your chops, you're trying to figure out who you are as an artist, and somewhere either nobody's going to like you and then you move on to something else, or somebody will go, I get it. And you've got your foot in the door and you're on your way. So what was the tipping point? Like how did it then turn to where you got your deal and started with your career?
I had, It was early on. I moved to Nashville in October of 1993. Had a couple relationships of people that were, I think I'd signed a single song deal to a publishing contract where basically a publisher heard one song, says, I like that song. I'm not gonna, pay you to write, but I would like to sign that song. Let me see if I can place it on a record. So that was a door in. And when I moved to Nashville, that publisher, Michael Purrier, who was with BMG
Oh
and
yeah.
had started his own company,
Hmm.
Final Four Music at the time, he he
He's a
basically
legend.
said, "What's that?"
Michael's a legend.
Oh, he's incredible.
Yeah.
And he basically said, "Hey, here's the kitchen at BMG. Here's the coffee
Hmm.
pot. You are welcome to come in any day and drink our coffee and hang out here." And so 4 days a week, I was in there sitting at the kitchen table by myself, drinking their coffee, writing songs by myself.
Wow.
And after a couple of weeks, he's like, "You're in here a lot. I like that. Have you ever co-written?" I was like, "Nope." He goes, "Would you like to try that?" So he set me up with a couple co-writers. Dwight Lyles
Yeah.
and Tony Wood were
Oh
my
my
two first
gosh.
co-writes.
Yeah.
And so Michael was kind of testing me out with that. Both of those guys apparently reported back that it went well enough that he offered me a small publishing contract to basically get paid to write songs. Wasn't enough to live on, but he was also helpful in getting me some. He knew that I had a desire to be an artist and to
Yeah.
sing as well, and so he wanted to help out with that. Found me some opportunities to sing on demo recordings of other songs and get paid some money for that.
Hmm.
Helped find me a part-time job delivering airline tickets.
Yeah.
So basically, he was like, "I don't have enough to pay you to do this full time, but I believe in you," which was huge to have
Uh-huh.
somebody be a champion.
Yep.
And so that was kind of the first in. And really, what I didn't know at the time, but learned a couple years after, Michael was definitely, as he was pitching my songs for other people's records, was kind of in the ear of the A&R, like, "Hey, listen to this guy's voice though. I think there's an artist here." So he was kind of pitching me as an artist as
Yeah.
well,
What year was
which
that?
that was 93, 94.
Okay.
So I moved in the end of 93. So I probably signed the deal with him in early 94. And by, gosh, probably the end of 94, had some interest
Hmm.
and eventually signed a deal with Word Records. But even that, I mean, all these stories, it's like I know I'm rambling, but each time I say something, it brings up something else. So John
Yeah.
Mays was the A&R with Word
Yeah.
that I signed with. Great guy, incredible
Uh-huh.
guy, also a legend.
Yeah.
And
Great bass
John had,
player. Great bass player too.
no kidding, and a heck of a
Yeah.
songwriter.
That's right.
But John had heard some of my songs and heard my voice, and he would have told you, he's like, "Yeah, like it, but don't get it. Don't hear you as an artist." And I was writing with an artist he recently signed, uh, Beck. Can't remember her last name because she's married now.
Yeah.
Um, but we were writing a song to pitch to Point of Grace. And so she and I wrote that day. She was sick. We invited John to come down and hear the song. So I had to sing this song. And he said that was the day that it clicked for me. He's like, I get it now. Whatever was transferring to tape, he wasn't hearing, but he got it live. And so that was the day that clicked for him. And he took me out for lunch the next week and basically said, what do you want to do? How can we make this happen?
Wow. It's okay. So you said Point of Grace, which takes me, we're going to take a little left turn here, but
Yeah.
people ask me all the time, and you and I have had this conversation before, but people ask me all the time, what's your most embarrassing moment on the road? I'm like, oh, it wasn't on stage. It was backstage. And you were with us in Point of Grace. You were opening for us, and
Yeah.
you would go on first, and then Point of Grace would go on and do their set, and then there'd be an intermission. For him would go out and do our set, and then we'd all kind of come back together and do something at the end. And I'll never forget, you and I we were backstage, and there was a room, and I have this memory of the NBA finals on TV, and I like probably the Bulls, and it was back in that era,
Yeah.
probably 95, 96, something like that. And you were kind of waiting to go out at intermission to go back to the product table, and sell merch and sign autographs. You know where I'm going with the story?
I don't remember the story, but if
you
but if
will.
it's around 96, the
Yeah.
Seattle Sonics were likely in those finals. So I would have
Ah,
definitely cared if, you
yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, I
I
would have
remember
cared
you.
anyway.
We were watching pretty intensely back there. And you were like, hey, where are the girls in the set? Because you didn't want to miss, going back for intermission.
Yeah.
And I leaned my head out of the door and I was like, oh, they're singing that incredible song of our faith, Jesus Doesn't Care. And you went, oh, really? You don't like that song? And I went, dude, I have real problems with that theology. Like, I don't know. You went, oh, well, I wrote that song. And I was like, good. Are you serious? And you're like, yeah, I wrote it. I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Whoa.
Everything okay?
Something just happened there. Oh, sorry. I was like, I'm so sorry, bro. And you're like, no. I want to hear, like, you're like really nice about it. I want to hear your feedback. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's the way it's being set up and it's, it's, I don't know, just it's something hit me different with it. And honestly, I went back and looked at the lyrics like literally yesterday when I knew I was going to have this conversation. I'm like, oh, that's a great song. And you mentioned Tony Wood. You wrote that with Tony.
Yeah.
And you said, I remember you saying, well, I didn't write the lyrics. I just mainly wrote the music for that. And he's like, but my name's on it, so I have to stand by it. And I just remember,
like
man,
me.
I remember being mortified, but yet completely put at ease by your reaction to that, just to go, okay, that's a friend. That's a friend who would go, let's just talk about it. I mean, maybe you secretly hated me after that comment,
Not at all.
but
since I
lingered,
forgot the
obviously.
story until
Yeah.
now, I didn't secretly hate you.
And you know what? It was in that moment I remember going, man, you just don't know who's a part of what in this industry because it's so tightly wound. You don't know who's played for who and who's been, who wrote for who, and that spider web just kind of goes all the way through Christian music. And man, I just remember that's literally my most embarrassing moment in Christian music. But
well, if that's your most embarrassing, then you haven't been embarrassed much. So I mean, that's
I have.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
I honestly, here's the thing. I don't get embarrassed on stage. I really don't, because part of my personality is, hey, mistakes are going to happen,
sure.
or and I've had plenty of times where I've said the wrong thing or whatever. For some reason, that doesn't bother me as much as the interpersonal dynamics of, I want to be respected by my peers, and I don't really care about, I don't say I don't care about the audience, because the audience makes us who we are, but I think because I don't know the people that we sing to as much, I'm more concerned with how we see each other and respect each other and have these relationships through the years. So anyway, I just had to throw that in there.
No,
Jesus
I
Doesn't
love
Care.
that.
It's a really good song.
Well, and thank you. And I'm fine if you still don't like it. Or if you don't like, because I mean, even with that, with that title, part of that title is to shock. It's to get you to go, whoa, what are they saying?
I'm like, but he does care. He does.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
But you're like, yeah, I get it. But
yep. And I totally get that. And the other thing is, it's not like anybody can have a different, take on their theology. I mean, shoot, all churches agree on everything. So, oh wait, that's not right, is it? People disagree on stuff. That's
I
why
think
there's
that was really healthy.
and
Especially now with digital media, and everybody's got their theology out there online. I mean, now's the time you better know your Bible.
Yeah, but even, that's the thing. We're all going to we bring our experience. The Bible's the Bible, but how do we interpret that Bible? And what does our experience bring into that? What does our tradition bring into that? I mean, it's an interesting take. I keep leaning on, I know there's something I have gotten wrong. I just don't know what it is. But I'm sure there's something that but even, I'm just trying to lean into loving people. That's hard enough. And if I can lean into that, I'll, I feel like I can sleep well at night. I can try to love people.
And that's the goal, isn't it? Is we want to be able to lay our head down on the pillow at night and go, I feel good about what I've done.
Yeah. I lived well today.
Yeah.
I lived today.
Yeah. That's right, man. Those are true words, brother. I don't know how many people you've lost in the last 3 or 4 years. It's mind-boggling to me how many people are not with us anymore. And literally just every day you go, thank you, Lord. I've got light in my eyes and breath in my lungs, and you've got more opportunities for me today.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's something about, aging and getting older, is that we're going to lose people. Certainly the last couple of years, just having gone through a pandemic, we're going to lose more people.
Yeah.
But aging, it's like I've lost both my parents. My
Same.
oldest brother is going to turn 70 next year.
Same.
Which I just go, so that makes 70 feel a whole lot younger to me.
It does.
But
yeah.
But I had a coffee with a 17-year-old yesterday, up a musician, who's a producer and stuff, and I'm like, at 17, you can't even see 30. 30 feels ancient.
Oh, it
So
does. I know.
how do you process what you
Wouldn't
might
you
want to
love to be
do?
30 again?
Yes and no. But I mean, knowing what I know now,
Yeah,
it'd be
right.
fun to be 30, but I don't need to live those years again.
Yeah. We were watching Tom Brady play last night, and everybody's talking about how old he is at 45. I'm like, oh man, I'd love to be 45 again. That sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd take 45. Although, I'm kind of happy to be out. It's a yes and no for me. It's like, I'm happy to be done with my 40s. There's something freeing that happens with every decade. It's like, I didn't mind turning 40, I didn't mind turning 50, but I find a little more freedom in caring a little less what other people think.
I agree. I'm the same way. The 50s have been my favorite decade so far.
Yeah.
Just because you're kind of right. You're kind of like, I kind of don't care what people think, and I feel like I have a lot to give to the next generation. And I don't know, until you get there, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, but I totally hear you. It's like, it's shifted for me over the last 4 or 5 years of what, the dreams of, oh, how can I write this cool song? It's like, I'm not going to be an artist. I mean, I am, and I will always be, but I'm not going to be some TikTok sensation or something that has zero desire from me to try to become. And I know the reality of, what we listen to, what the ad buyers buy. And I go, well, how can I give back? How can, I've been successful in a way. I still get to make music. I'm very grateful that God has allowed the doors to stay open, and that he's opened different doors over the years. I've also gone through a lot of tough stuff and been through 8 years of counseling and therapy. So I'm kind of like, I have a lot to offer, and I can see different perspectives. And so it's fun for me to be able to come alongside young artists and writers, and maybe offer an opportunity to make the path a little straighter, or to connect some dots, or to, oh, cool, you're 18 and you're crazy successful, and at the same time I can see that you're miserable, but you haven't opened that up to yourself yet. So maybe giving them an opportunity, like, are you happy doing what you're doing? You're making a ton of money and your people love you, but you don't seem happy, or just maybe posing some different questions. So
yeah. When I do mentoring and coaching, one of the things I tell younger artists and worship leaders that I work with is, one of the reasons you can trust me is because I feel like I've made all the mistakes there are to make. I feel like I've checked all the boxes, like, okay, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And sometimes that's better to share than, okay, do this, do this, do this, because everybody's different.
Yeah.
But we all make the same mistakes. And you get to a certain point where you just go, yeah, okay. If you don't do this and you don't do that, you don't do that, because I've done all those, then you're going to be fine. And you're going to be fine anyway. Just keep going. I want to talk about that for a minute. I mentioned before we got started, or as we got started, that you have figured out this post Christian music career.
Figured out's a really strong term. I don't know if I got it figured out.
Look, I mean, hey, every time my grandkids are here, I've got to hear the Paw Patrol soundtrack. They've got all these toys that play Paw Patrol all the time. I mean, even if you just, if it's on your tombstone when you go, I was a successful Christian artist and I wrote the Paw Patrol theme song. I mean, look, you're everywhere. Like your music is everywhere, and it's not limited to just one genre. And what I love about you, Scott, is that you've kept your faith strong. You still keep a connection to what you did in Christian music, but you're so multifaceted in the music that you create and where it is right now, where people could find it. Can we just take a little bit of a journey on how you made that transition from a Nashville artist to now basically being on the West Coast and having your hands in so many of the shows that we see and movies that we watch and songs that we hear everywhere.
Mm. Well, the story isn't as seamless as you make it sound. I'll start with that, but it's,
Well, it never is it?
it's a road with a lot of potholes and a lot of corners and turns. And I remember kind of when I was getting closer to 50, I kind of looked back and I was like, all the things that I've done in my 40s, I didn't even know existed when I turned 40. Like yeah, I knew there were things out there, but kids music wasn't on my radar. Singing commercials wasn't on my radar. There were just a lot of opportunities that happened. So I can either be freaked out about 50 to 60 and where work might come from or not come from, or I can be like, who knows what doors may open up in this decade. So I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other and enjoy the ride as much as possible. But to reference a For Him song, kind of. But my wife and I spent 10 years in Nashville. So we moved back to Seattle in 2003. So 20 years ago. I was still signed to my second deal. I'd gotten dropped did 2 records with Word, got dropped. I don't think they termed it that way. They have some nicer term than that, but essentially, we weren't selling enough records to make them want to pick up an option.
Right.
But found a new home at Spring Hill, got to do 4 records there. And because I was like, I still feel like I'm called to do this. I still have a desire to do this. I'd like to, so if I can have a partner in a record company to facilitate some of that, I'm glad I got another 10 years of being able to tour and make the records that I had a heart to make and say the things that God was putting on my heart in that season. So we transitioned to Seattle. I was still making records in Nashville, so flying back and forth quite a bit, and then touring, just flying out of Seattle to do that. So a lot more red-eye flights.
Yeah.
But I knew that season would come to a close. I knew that generally people are not artists forever. The songwriting window can stay open a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of had my eye out for when are concerts going to slowly tail off. I knew that at the end of the Spring Hill deal, I didn't want to make another commitment to a record contract,
Right.
because a company's not going to sign a 1 year or a 1 record deal. They want more than that. I was like, I'm not committed to more than that. And I was also doing some songwriting out in Los Angeles. I wanted to expand what I was writing, loved writing the themes that we were talking about in the CCM world. But I also was like, my faith allowed life to be bigger than that. So how do I take my faith and write a love song, but have it come from a, Christian worldview? So trying to, be a light and feel like I succeeded at that sometimes and failed at that sometimes, but learned a lot through that process. So what I was doing was expanding. The technology was changing.
Yeah.
So moving and setting up my own little studio here in Seattle all of a sudden was a thing that became more affordable, than it was a decade prior. So I did a couple independent records up here, was writing different songs for things, and had a few times when I'm like, I think the dream might be done, honey. Should I talk to my wife like, hey, should I start looking online for, a worship leader position somewhere? Is it time? Is real estate the next thing? I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and teach math in high school. I don't know. And she's like, no, don't. I mean, there are a couple times and she's like, do not quit this thing. You're supposed to be doing this. You're good at this. And every once in a while we join a new church out here. The pastor was also a songwriter, so he and I started writing some stuff. We entered this song contest for American Idol in
Yeah.
2007. Ended up winning that, so that was kind of a boost and a bump that kept me going for a while. Had another song a few years later in the Christian world that I wrote with a buddy named Scott Davis. We got together to watch basketball, so there's that basketball theme again.
Yeah.
And at halftime, started talking about life. Ended up writing a song that day. Got recorded, did really well. Allowed for that season to continue a little while longer. So it's just and somewhere along the line, I think it was 2000. It's been 10 years now, so 2013. We had an opportunity just through relationships. You if you treat people kindly and go about your business, and that's kind of I've tried to play the long game, for lack of a
Mm.
better term, of going, I'd like to make music for a long time. I really love it. I feel like it's a gift that I've been given, and I want to give back. And just different relationships that might disappear for 5 years and then reappear. Ran into it's too many stories to tell, but basically had an opportunity to connect with a dude that I'd met 8 years previously. And I met his manager at a dinner in Los Angeles, and she's like, "Hey, we're doing some kids songs. You might be good at that. Do you know Smitty?" And I'm like, "I do know Smitty. We've talked about writing for 8 years. We never have." First song we wrote was the Paw Patrol theme song. And it
Wow.
was just taking a shot at a kids thing. I'd never written kids music in my life. So we were, and he and I wrote two shots at that. I wrote a couple other shots with a couple other people, just hoping we can get something. But even with that one, which has turned into this thing that has gone beyond what any of us really could fathom 10 years ago. We knew we made it to the final two songs, and we'd done some edits on it, so we knew we were in the hunt and had a shot. And we got a call one day saying, "Hey, I'm really sorry. Thanks for all your work on this. We went the other direction. We chose the other song." So we were significantly bummed. We didn't get it.
Yeah.
The day after, we got another phone call. Some other executive who had more power said, "Nope, that's not the song. This is the song." So we got the call like, "Well, you guys won it." And they had to make another call and tell the person from the previous day that they now had not won it. So it's that it's not random, but it feels random. And it's like, I'm just going to try to do the best work I can and know that I can't control whether something lands or not. All I can
Yeah.
do is try to do the best thing I can. And that one has, opened up other doors that now I'm like, what do you do? I write kids music and I love it. I watched those Mr. Rogers movies a few years ago and bawled my way through both of
Wow.
them, and realized, in some ways he was a surrogate father, and I knew all the words to
Mm.
all those songs. And I was like, this is a gift that I've been given in this season of life to hopefully give, kids an opportunity to smile, that, among other things. So
That's wonderful. I love that. And I just say thanks for influencing my grandkids. I've got 5 now. And I mean, that's, it's not as, when I hear a kid's song, especially something like Paw Patrol, I go, oh, that's so easy. Like, oh, look how easy that is. But I know it's not. It's, there's a lot of that goes into that. But that, I think that's the beauty of a great song, is you go, oh, why didn't I write that? Why didn't I think of that? So I just love that, man. I love that, that you didn't give up, and Katie didn't allow you to give up on what you were gifted to do. I just think that's so important. And success doesn't always come the way we think it will. And that happens in
hardly ever does.
every era of life. I'm a walking, breathing example of that as well, in everything that God's got me doing. I want to switch back now to your time in Christian music in the 90s,
Yeah.
because that's kind of what this podcast is all about. And your kids, when you talk to your kids about that era, or the stories you tell to people, what are some of the stories that come up, or some of the memories, I think maybe the core memories of those days, and your early career, or when you had your first #1 song? What are some of those places you always go back to and like to talk about?
It's mean, it feels like family. And I know there are going to be people who wouldn't believe that, but I feel like for my with my experience and my journey in that, I feel like I got to hang with some great people. I have no horror stories. I was treated kindly and generously and invited to go on tours with you guys, with Point of Grace, with Kathy Tricoli, and just feel like I was loved well. So y'all start to get emotional. But I made a lot of friends, and 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 it was just fun that it and those friendships and those relationships, like I still hear a song come on from then and I'll be like, oh, and it reminds me of a time of singing backstage or watching basketball or, hearing you do warm-ups or, I mean, it's just, it's, it's fun memories. And I think, I love a good worship song. Um, and having said that, I appreciate the stories that we were able to tell through songs in the 90s. There were vertical worship songs that were written and sung. There were also a whole host of other songs that people were writing and singing, and we were at a time in the industry side of it, and the listenership side where those songs could get heard, where they could find radio airplay or now streaming airplay. And I'm really grateful for that because I'm not a guy that I don't write worship songs well. I feel like that about, like you said about the Paw Patrol, like it seems so easy and yet I know it's not. And I seem like I could have written that and yet I don't. And it's hard. And if I sit down and try to do that, it's not what I do well, and but I love the content of what those songs got to be in the 90s, and that's what drew me in. It's the Michael W. Smiths and the Stephen Curtis Chapmans and the Cindy Morgans and the Four Hymns, because that's the other thing, that while I got to spend a small season a part of that thing, I was a fan and impacted by the music previously. My journey as a recording artist, at least on a national level, started in 1995, but I got introduced to Christian music probably in 1987, 88. So,
Yeah.
Going to a White Heart concert, going to a Russ Taff concert, knowing Four Hymn songs, and then like I'm hanging backstage and but there's that immediate thing. And then it's like, oh, and these guys are nice and we're becoming friends, and everybody's just a person, and we all, have things that we're struggling with and things that we get to celebrate. So,
Yeah. Is there one person in particular that you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought I would meet this person? Like, I know for me, like when I think it was like 93 maybe was when we got to do that first Young Messiah tour. Remember Young Messiah?
yeah.
And the Gaither Vocal Band had backed out and weren't going to do the tour, and they called us in last minute to do it. And man, I'm on a bus with Carmen, and they're just like, there were these people that I'm like, what is happening here? I remember that was one of those moments for me. I'm like, I don't know how I got here. Is there some place for you, some core memory for you of meeting one of your heroes in Christian music and just like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, there's the one that comes to mind because it wasn't too long after I moved to town, but I wasn't a signed artist or anything. But the Katinas had Seattle connections, and so we got connected from some common friends up
Love
here,
those
and so
guys.
they were just embracing. They like, come over, come, hey, we're going to play basketball, come play ball with us, and I can't remember who all played that night. The first night I played ball with him, but I remember Michael W. was there, and I think
Wow.
Toby Mack was there. But I remember
Wow.
blocking a shot from Smitty, and that was like my introduction. And so part of me is like, and I got a little height advantage, not that he's not short, but it was still like, I'm going, just blocked a shot. I probably shouldn't have done that. That was probably a really bad career move. But it's still this thing of, I can't believe I'm playing ball, and that, because that was so early on that I hadn't been out on the road or anything at that point. So Yeah, that comes to mind. But weird things that when I didn't expect somebody to know who I was, and they'd come and be like, "Hey, Scott," I'd be like, you what? You know me?" You know. But I still feel that way around a lot of people. So
I hope we never lose. I do too. And I hope we never lose that. And
I hope
it's,
not either.
it's, I'm grateful as you are, as you shared your story, that we've had that opportunity to make some really great music, to make some really great friends, and for that music to still feel timeless. I don't know if it does to you, it does to me. And there are younger generations that are discovering that music, and it kind of blows my mind. I'll have people that are I have young people that are 16, 17, 18 years old come up to you and go, "I just heard my parents just played me for him, and it's actually really good." Oh, really? Thanks for being surprised. But yeah, no, man, I love it. I
No,
think
I
you
I
should.
agree
uh,
with you. I mean, so when you sang about for future generations, you meant it. And
yeah,
then, now they're, I mean, but yeah, it feels, I mean, it's timeless in a way, and I'm really glad we got to tell the stories, and I feel like such a tiny part of it. I mean, it because we never, the in so many ways, I never lived up to the record company expectations of what record sales they thought would be, because a record company can believe, I'll use me as an example. They can believe in me as an artist and think I'm a nice guy, and think I have something to say. But at the end of the day, they're investing a lot of money in whatever artist they sign. And
that's
so
right.
you're still an investment. It's like, yeah, we believe in what you're saying, but we also believe that you can sell enough records to make this make sense from a business venture. Not just make
Hmm.
sense, but really be successful.
Right.
And so I didn't live up to those early on expectations. And yet I somehow still got to do it for like 15 years. And it was really cool, and got to meet wonderful people on the road, and got to, see the country at least, and see some parts of the world, and get to meet cool people. That will always feel, special to me. I really feel like I don't know if protected is the right word, but I felt well taken care of, by the folks that I got to be around. Well
That's
cared
great.
for, I guess.
I'm glad that you have that perspective. And I love you, bro. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I love that you know, that we could just sit down to just like we'd go to dinner and like no time has passed. I just want to tell you too, just personally, like thanks for returning my text and reaching out.
Thanks for
It,
texting.
well, I mean, here's the thing. I know so many people that I consider friends, and they're awesome, but they just don't return texts or emails or whatever. And I just want you to know that I appreciate you, and I'm excited for what God is doing through you and all the opportunities that He has, and that the future is never ending with God. I don't believe in retirement. I think that if we've got something to do, let's do it until our last breath, until the
Yeah.
light goes out of our eyes. So, man, I appreciate you, Scott. I'm honored to call you a friend, and best of luck. Do we say luck as Christians? I think
No, I don't think we're gonna get in
everybody
trouble
understands.
for it.
Yeah,
So,
best of luck in everything that you're doing moving forward.
thank you very much. Thank you for texting.